I want to talk to you today about the law of God. What exactly is the law of God? Is it a bunch of commandments? What are the commandments? Who came up with the commandments, the 10 commandments? You shouldn't steal, you shouldn't kill, you should love God, you shouldn't worship idols, you shouldn't commit adultery. All these things that guide your life, where do they come from anyway? Well, they come from the Bible. And the Bible tells you where they come from. They don't just come from a book that God wrote, the Bible, but they come from God's character. The 10 Commandments come from God's character. They're an expression of who He is. It's who God is. God is pure. He's total moral purity. God has been morally pure for as far back as you can go, for infinite eternity. God is so morally pure. So when He has the 10 Commandments that He requires of us, that's just an expression of who He is. God doesn't want us to kill people for no reason. He doesn't want us to sleep with our friends' wives. He doesn't want us to lust after our friends. He wants us to act in love, because love and holiness and purity, that's an expression of who God is. Anyway, so what I want you to remember is that the 10 Commandments are an expression of God's character. They show who God is and what's important to Him. So that's why God requires us to obey them, because we're His creatures. We're His creatures. He made us. So He requires us to obey Him and obey His commandments, to act the way that He would. Well, we know that you can't act the way He would, because that's why we're called sinners, because we do the exact opposite of what God would do. We hate our brothers and sisters. We hate our friends. We steal from each other. So that's why we keep pointing you to Jesus. Jesus is the only person who is able to do everything according to God's character. That's because Jesus is God, God the Son. And so He's the only one who could come down here and could obey the commandments of God for us. That's why when we become a Christian, Jesus gives us His jacket of good works. All the obedience that He had to perfectly reflect the character of God, He did for me. And He gave me. Now that I'm a Christian, I still obey the commandments. Not to be saved, not to be better friends with God. I obey the commandments because I love God. And He's my best friend and my Creator. And I want to show the way God is through my behavior. I want to please Him. I want to do what I was created to do, which is to show the character of God. So to kind of wrap this up, the law of God is an expression of God, who He is, what His character is like. What is the character of God like? Well, look at what He requires of us. Loving kindness towards others, selflessness, kindness, stewardship of the earth, using our talents to bring glory to Him, to be creative for the sake of God, to be mirrors to show God's personality. That's obeying the law of God. Now, as I mentioned, we can't do it perfectly. In fact, we can't do a very good job at all. That's why we need Jesus. But as Christians, we serve God, and we know how to obey God and how to serve Him best by obeying His commandments for us, His requirements for us. Those requirements are summed up in the 10 Commandments. And also they're summed up in the commandment that Jesus said, that love God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself.